The universe is infinite, but life is limited. If you don't know it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. My name is Zhang Wuji. The most incredible story in China I'm introducing today is Chinese fortune-telling, how accurate. We will launch a series of stories, including fortune-telling stories of political figures, celebrities in the literary and artistic circles, and ordinary people in the countryside. Next, we try to introduce some fortune-telling stories of political figures. The general feeling is that Chinese political figures behave strangely, and it is difficult for outsiders, especially ordinary people, to know. In fact, these high-spirited people are not the atheists they claim. Due to the scramble and intrigue in the political arena, and the fear of life at any time, they are the main source of customers for the mysterious fortune-telling industry. Yuan Shushan, Chiang Kai-shek's most trusted fortune-teller, fulfilled his orders like a god. Yuan Shushan was born in 1881 in a family of doctors and divination, with a long history of family education. In his early years in Zhenjiang, he practiced medicine as well as fortune-telling and divination. He failed in the scholar examination, and later studied at Peking University, studied sociology in Japan, and had the opportunity to enter the officialdom when he returned home after studying, but he was not keen on fame and fortune, and returned to his hometown and continued to practice medicine and divination. It is said that he once met Sun Yat-sen and said that Sun was indescribably precious, and that he was not what ordinary people call wealthy, but pure and noble, who belittled the position of the emperor and did not do it. In the 1930s, Yuan Shushan no longer practiced medicine, but concentrated on fortune-telling. His fame soon brought him big clients. The first big person I saw was He Ying-qin, a member of the nationalist government. After reading a fortune at Yuan Shushan's place, he admired him very much and recommended him to Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek was also curious, so he went to see Yuan Shushan, and Yuan Shushan's blunt comments were appreciated by Chiang Kai-shek. As a result, everyone from political dignitaries to wealthy businessmen are proud to hold the orders issued by Mr. Yuan. Wu Peifu, a Beiyang warlord who was able to make calculations himself, once sent someone to ask Yuan to make a fortune, and after being convinced by Yuan, he sent a special envoy to invite Yuan out of the mountain with a lot of money. Yuan Shushan declined Wu's invitation. Yuan Shushan has also become Chiang Kai-shek's most trusted numerology master. Miao Bin, director of the Civil Affairs Department of Jiangsu Province, once asked him to give orders. Yu Wu's words, "People don't understand." Later, Miao Bin took refuge in Wang's puppet government and became a traitor. After the victory of the anti-Japanese war, Miao Bin was reduced to a prisoner. Miao Bin asked his wife to find Wu Zhihui, a veteran of the Kuomintang in Wuxi, to intercede with Chiang Kai-shek. Wu Zhihui was too serious and lobbied in many ways, which made Chiang Kai-shek suspicious. In addition, it was said at that time that Miao Bin's vote for Wang and I was originally ordered by Chiang Kai-shek to lurk behind the enemy's rear. What is the face of the government and leaders for such a secret? Therefore, the national government ordered the immediate execution to set the record straight. Compared with other big traitors who escaped death, Miao Bin's fate indeed fulfilled Yuan Shushan's prophecy of being affected by Wu. In 1938, when Nanjing fell, for people including the regiment leader Sui of a Kuomintang, the battalion commander Gui Qi, and adjutant Zhong came to Shanghai after the defeat. Head Sui believed in the study of fortune-telling very much, and thought that he should visit Mr. Yuan Shushan, a master of fortune-telling nearby, for advice. Gui Qi didn't believe in fate, so he couldn't stand the persuasion of others, so he went together. Yuan Shushan looked at the photos for the other three people, and then looked at Gui Qi. Mr. Gui is a soldier. He can be promoted to Major General and Division Commander at the age of 40. Afterwards, he will fight in the desert. If he loses the battle, his life will be in danger. However, in the end, they were able to escape the danger and return to the team. Since then, it has been smooth sailing, and the future blessings are enviable. The four later escaped from Shanghai and returned to Wuhan via Hong Kong. Gui Qi was promoted from time to time. In the first half of 1945, the three districts of Ili, Tachang and Altai rebelled. Guiqi's troops were all wiped out. The place where the war took place was in the desert. Due to lack of water, Guiqi was so thirsty that he passed out. He rescued the enemy and returned to the army when the prisoners were exchanged after the war. After Guiqi went to Taiwan, his life was smooth and his children achieved a lot. So far, Yuan Shushan's words have been fulfilled one by one. After the Kuomintang retreated to Taiwan, the glorious tradition of fortune-telling by politicians also led to the Treasure Island of Taiwan. People of all sizes in Taiwan's political arena also love to rely on fortune-telling to give advice, and the degree is amazing. According to Taiwan's China Times, there are countless people in the Kuomintang who love fortune-telling. From Jiang Jinghua to Li Tenghui, Su Shuide, Su Jiqing, Su Lide and others, they will more or less listen to the suggestions of fortune-telling. Among them, when Chang Qingque was in power, Nalin, the last Qin Tianjian in the Qing dynasty, was regarded as the national teacher. If he had any doubts, he would ask for advice. Although Li Tenghui is a Christian, he also likes fortune-telling. When Li Tenghui was the mayor of Taipei, Lin Changming, the director of the Municipal Legal Affairs Office, used Siwei Doshu and horoscope to calculate Li Tenghui's fortune. Lin Changming told Li Tenghui at the end of 1987, the year before Chang Qingque passed away, that he would be his successor. It is said that Li was quite shocked at the time, because if this word got out at that time, he would lose his head. Su Jiqing, the former director of the Secretary Office of the Presidential Palace, studied the Book of Changes with Nan Huaijin for many years. Through Su's recommendation, Li Tenghui often asked Nan Huaijin for help. The most astonishing thing is Chen Shuibian, who regards a fortune-teller as a national policy advisor. Even Tsai Ing-wen, chairman of the DPP who is not superstitious, has a feng shui formation in front of her office. Although the DPP Central Committee has repeatedly denied it, feng shui experts point out that the formation is to consolidate the leadership center. But the fortune-telling story of the most famous politician in Taiwan should be related to the number one fortune-teller in Taiwan. In Minxiang, Chiayi, Taiwan, there is a well-known blind man named Lu Xiaozi. On December 30, 2013, he died at the age of 85 due to liver cancer, but his life can be said to be very legendary. It is said that when he was 10 years old, during the anti-Japanese war, his family was very poor, and Japanese planes often bombed the local area, so he and his friends hid in the bridge hole for refuge. One day, he, Lu Xiangshi, found the body of a little girl not far outside the bridge hole, which was killed by the Japanese army. Lu Xiangshi took some straw mats to cover the body, thinking that her family would come to claim it. But the next day, no one came to dispose of the corpse, so Lu Xiangshi showed kindness and helped to bury the corpse. Let this little girl rest in peace. Dinan with a dream Lu, telling her that she was very grateful to him and that she would spend her life repaying him. Lu Dinan asked how to repay him. The little girl asked if you wanted money or a name. Mr. Lu's family was poor, so he asked for money. The little girl said that you have to pay a little price. Are you willing? You will lose the ability to see things in the future, but you can see everyone's fate, Mr. Lu agreed. As a result, when he was more than 10 years old, his eyesight became weaker and weaker for no reason, and he finally lost his sight. But at the same time, his fortune-telling ability is getting better and better. It is said that the little girl Tuoming taught him for 7 days, and Lu Dinan, who has got the truth, started to help people with fortune-telling for free. This is what I live for. In principle, Lu Xiangshi's Xiangming Hall is full when there are many people. It does not rest 365 days a year, and fortune-telling is often done until midnight. He also prepared accommodation for the guests. In his fortune-telling career, he counted about 500,000 people, but his grandson said that Lu Xiangshi insisted not to pass it on to his children and grandchildren, because if he leaked his destiny, he would lose his life. Lu Xiangshi can also use a tape recorder to record the fortune-telling process, so that you can keep it and take it back to listen to. Don't underestimate the volumes of tapes, because there are hidden life mysteries in them. Take out the fortune-telling recordings from a few years ago. Mr. Huang, who asked him to tell his fortune, was amazed at him. Mr. Huang said that at that time, he only reported his horoscope to Lu Xiangshi, but Lu Xiangshi was able to tell about the fact that he almost drowned when he was a child. Not only that, he would start talking about it when he was 1 year old, and if he was 80 years old, he would cut it. If you drop it, it means that he has calculated that you will leave the world at the age of 80. There is a characteristic of Lu Xiangshi's fortune-telling. He never goes downstairs or goes out. He always tells people's fortunes on the second floor. Every time he starts, he has to wear a towel on his head and wrap a scarf around his neck. The only time Lu Xiangshi went out was when he was Chiang Kai-shek, and Chiang Kai-shek came to pick him up in a special car to go to Sun Moon Lake for secret talks. Jiang Gong informed that no recording was allowed during the whole process, and all problems were not allowed to be publicized. There are a lot of dignitaries who come here for fame. Besides Chiang Kai-shek, there are also Chiang Ching-kuo, Lee Teng-hui, China Shui Bian, Lin Chan, Singapore's first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, former South Korean President Park Chung-hee, etc. It is said that Jiang Jingwa visited the door in person. After the fortune-telling, many of Jiang Jingwa's hesitant issues were resolved, including whether to take the counterattack to the mainland as his primary strategy. From then on, Taiwan's economic miracle journey began. It is said that when Chen Shuibian was 4 years old, his mother took him to see Lu Xiangshi for fortune-telling. At that time, Lu Xiangshi concluded that he would become the president. For Chen Shuibian, who was a third-level poor family at that time, this was simply a fairy tale, so the neighbors used it as a joke at the time, but when he grew up, the prophecy came true, and he was imprisoned afterwards. Mention. When Lee Teng-hui went, he was still the provincial chairman. When he asked about his official position, Lu Xiangshi said straightly, "You get a big position, but you lose your son." It is said that Lee Teng-hui became anxious as soon as he heard it. Thinking about it, his only son was more important, and asked if there was any way to resolve it, and whether he could change his life. Lu Xiangshi replied him with 4 words, "Destiny has been fixed." Interestingly, there was a female guest who came to tell a fortune, and after reporting the horoscope, Lu Xiangshi said, "You are destined for my grandson." Later, they really introduced each other, and after they met, they became boyfriend and girlfriend, and they have been dating ever since. A Taiwanese female netizen, Ms. Jiang, also shared her personal experience of finding Lu Xiangshi for fortune-telling on the internet. Ms. Jiang said that this was the most amazing fortune-telling experience in my life, and it also made me truly believe that there are indeed forces in the world that cannot be explained by science. Lu Xiangshi's fortune-telling place is his home, a very simple and unassuming 3-story Tushianguo. There is an old notebook on the first floor, and everyone writes their names in order. I think everyone only left their full names. So I only registered the 3 words Miss Jiang. The second floor is the place where Lu Xiangshi usually tells his fortune. It is an open lobby with seats placed against the walls on all sides. All the people who come to ask Lu Xiangshi for fortune-telling are sitting in the lobby, and Lu Xiangshi sits in the middle of the lobby. He was sitting on a rocking chair with a towel on his head and a pair around his neck, and he was wearing a very simple undershirt and shorts, helping people to tell fortunes on the spot. Ms. Jiang said that there is no so-called privacy here. You can hear other people's birth, old age, sickness and death clearly, so sitting there waiting is not boring at all. Someone even came back from Australia to look for Lu Xiangshi. As soon as Lu Xiangshi opened his mouth, he said, "You are lucky to come back to me. Has there been a series of tragedies in your family recently? What happened to someone in your family?" The middle-aged man turned pale when he heard this, and Lu Xiangshi said that if you come to me later, you will change to someone else, and the middle-aged man stammered and replied that the man was already in trouble. Miss Jiang said that there is still a problem. For the middle-aged man and woman who seemed to be married, they waited in the lobby for several days without their turn, so they came up to ask Lu Xiangshi during his break. They shouldn't be legally married to each other. The couple's expressions changed drastically and they turned around and left. How long did I wait? Miss Jiang said. I waited for 3 days. Every morning, before the fortune-telling, Lu Xiangshi would lead the people who lined up that day to worship at the god table on the 3rd floor. On the 3rd morning, while I was praying, I thought in my heart that if I didn't count again this morning, my afternoon passenger is about to leave Minxiong. If I have a relationship with Lu Xiangshi, let me count it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't. As a result, just after worshipping, when Lu Xiangshi was still washing his hands at the sink next to the altar table, he suddenly called out, "Miss Jiang from Taipei is here." When I heard goosebumps from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, when I left my name, I only kept Ms. Jiang. How did he know that I came from Taipei? I timidly replied yes, and then Lu Xiangshi asked me to go over and help him get the towel. Lu Xiangshi's habit is to ask you to do things for him only when he wants to tell your fortune for you. While washing the towels, Lu Xiangshi began to chat with me about my family. How is your father and your mother? These details are unknown to outsiders, and I was speechless and stunned. Ms. Jiang said that when the calculation was officially started, Xiangshi Lu asked me to give him the most accurate birthday horoscope. He said that the calculation of fleeting years would be more accurate in this way. The characteristic of Lu Xiangshi is that he will tell you about the major events that happened every year from birth to death, and then record them on tape for you to take home, as if he is looking at a book in his heart and reading the contents sentence by sentence come out the same. Ms. Jiang said that I counted all 4 members of my family once. Do you think the result is accurate? My feeling is that the calculation of the past and the present is really accurate, so accurate that it is terrifying. Later, Lu Xiangshi called me Miss Taipei from the beginning to the end. My local language is not very good. Sometimes I can't understand what Xiangshi said to me, and everyone will help to listen and answer. Lu Xiangshi said at the beginning that I studied law. I was thin but not too thin. When I was a child, I had a strange disease at the age of 7. How old is my brother and I? What is it? What's the matter? What is my father's family? What is he doing? Even the position is right. He also said that I have 2 younger brothers. I thought to myself at the time, I only have 1 younger brother. I can't make it right. I was thinking this way, and he suddenly added that there are only 1 of the 2. I went home and told my mother, and my mother said that she was still pregnant after my brother, but she didn't stay. I didn't know until I was 25 years old, but Lu Xiangshi figured it out. On the spot, some people were also counted as adopted children or divorced, and there was also a girl who was said to be a nurse and turned out to be a nurse, all of which were quite accurate. By the time Lu Xiangshi was in his 80s, he had already achieved both fame and wealth, and there was still an endless stream of people who came to him for fortune-telling, but he never refused. After counting the lives of countless people, Lu Xiangshi said, all kinds of people, 10,000 kinds of fate. A person can't take a bad path, so that he won't plant bad results for himself. People, to avoid the unavoidable disasters in life, but if you choose to go the wrong way and get into trouble, then it is useless to ask him to tell your fortune and change your luck. In Taiwan, speaking of Minxiong's fortune-telling blind man Lu Xiang Master, there are not many people who don't know that. If you ask how many fortune tellers are there in his family, I usually have to wait in line at his house for 4 or 5 days before I have the chance to find him once. Until one day, a certain richest businessman in Taiwan went to visit Lu Xiangshi, who was already in his 80s at that time. During that fortune-telling process, Lu Xiangshi's voice suddenly changed into that of a little girl, which startled everyone around him. Afterwards, the little girl who taught Lu Xiangshi fortune-telling in her dream told Lu Xiangshi that their fate was over, and he would lose the ability of fortune-telling from then on. From that day on, Lu Xiangshi really lost his fortune-telling ability and could no longer tell fortunes to others. Therefore, in the last 2 years of Lu Xiangshi's life, he has lost the ability to tell fortunes. According to Lu Xiangshi's eldest son, Lu Xiangshi has told the fortunes of more than 200,000 people in the past 70 years. This is also a miracle in the history of Chinese fortune-telling. Not only in the political circles of Taiwan, but in fact there are fortune-telling wherever there are Chinese. The mainland political circles are also flocking to fortune-telling. The public information that everyone knows includes Zhou Yongkang's national teacher Chao XX, and Mr. Jiang, who passed away recently. A man of temperament, it is said that there are more than a dozen of his national teachers. One of the fortune tellers told him to avoid those whose zodiac sign is snake, but it is one thing for others to tell you many things, and another thing for you to do it. Dr. Zhang's interpretation, fortune-telling is undoubtedly one of the most mysterious parts of Chinese culture, and it is not true to deny it completely, because whether you like it or not, whether it is in politics cycle or in the countryside, it has been there for thousands of years. Well, that's all for today, as we roll out some of China's most incredible stories every week. I hope everyone supports. Welcome to discuss. Remember to subscribe to encourage us to continue to create. Thank you.